This is Car Con Carne. I'm James Van Osdell, and this episode is being recorded remotely because one of my guests for this episode is overseas. Car Con Carne is sponsored by AlexRossArt.com. Alex Ross, a giant, a legend in the world of comics and graphic novels. His photorealistic paintings make comics exciting and thrilling, and they remind us why we fell in love with these characters in the first place. You can visit alexrossart.com at any time. However, if you're going to San Diego Comic-Con, ground zero for all things comics and pop culture, Alex Ross Art will be there, booth 2415 at the San Diego Comic-Con. Whenever Alex Ross Art is at a con, it is a big deal. It is a showstopper. And if you're going to San Diego, make sure you visit Alex Ross Art. In the meantime, alexrossart.com. So let's get right to it. My guests. First, Robert Lloyd is perhaps best known for his time with the Nightingales. Janet Beveridge Bean is a longtime Chicago music hero, most known for 11th Dream Day and Freakwater, and the latter is more relevant to what we're talking about today. Lloyd and Bean have come together for a new project that's harder to describe than it should be. It's alt country in moments, there's a crooner vibe, but overall there's a timeless classic feel to these songs. And the voices of Lloyd and Bean are so well paired that it seems bizarre to think that they haven't been working together for years. Robert Lloyd and Janet Beveridge Bean are here. This is Car Con Carne. Awesome to see you both. I guess the first question is, when did you first cross paths? Was this like a long time in the making? Basically, what led to the collaboration?
I think it was 1999, Robert, around then.
It was around then, yeah.
It was the Freakwater End Time record. I think that were we touring on that, maybe?
Yeah, you were. 99, 2000, something like that. And Freakwater were playing a gig in London. And my own band, the Nightingales, had a gig in London on exactly the same night as Sod's Law. But I heard that Freakwater were doing a radio session for Resonance FM, which is a small but cool station in London. And somehow, which I can't fully remember how, but I kind of managed to blag my way into this session they were doing. We'd never met before, but I'd recently got into Freakwater. I was quite late to the party. And when they'd finished doing the session, Janet and Catherine and I went to a nearby pub and had a few drinks together, and we had a laugh and got on well. And somehow, though I genuinely don't remember this, but I must have got Janet's phone number. So many years later, when I had this idea of us doing a record together, I was able to send her a message and ask her if she wanted to do it.
Well, I said in the intro, it's hard to believe that you haven't been working together for years. Listening to the way you're paired on this album, I mean, it's such a nice. You complement each other very well.
Oh, I thought you meant maybe like an old married couple who are just like bickering and things. Because there's that there too, which is, I think adds an element of authenticity.
Well, even the cover image looks like a candid with two old friends who adore each other. It's a very sweet image.
I do love that image, and it was taken very, very early in the morning. Like we had to get up at 6 or something to go out and scout a place. We were in Valencia at the time, and I had not gotten more than, I don't know, 8 hours sleep in a 10-day span. And so we had to get up and go out and take these photos. And it was pretty amusing. We had to go into a restaurant. I said, let's do it in a restaurant. And it looks like paparazzi is shooting us or something. So they let us come in before they were open, and they were very kind to us. Yeah, I do like that photo very much.
I want to get into the specific songs, but I think before we drill down, how did you decide on songs to use for this project?
Well, we just threw ideas at each other, I think, initially. There were a couple of my old songs that I really wanted Janet to sing. And she came up with a few of her songs as suggestions for me to sing. And the covers were we knocked around quite a few ideas for covers before deciding on the few that we did. And do you want to take over, Janet?
But I remember it in a little more of a humorous way, because I think I had no idea at all. I don't think, and to back up a little bit, Robert said he'd had my phone number, but we had seen each other a few times over that long stretch of period between 1999 and when I got the text in 2018 or 19, whatever that was, and to make the record. I always like to, I don't, it's probably annoys you, Robert, by now, but I always like to tell the story that when we played a few times in, I think once in Ireland, you came to see us in Ireland too, didn't you once? You were on holiday maybe? And you saw us? Yeah. And then another time in London, maybe someplace else, I don't know. And he would, when we met Robert, when Catherine and I met Robert for the first time, he was sort of this daunting figure lurking outside of the doors of the BBC radio station. And I swear it was a trench coat, that kind of thing. and we were very just like, sure, like trying to be friendly Southern American girls. Like, yeah, come on in. We have no idea who you are. If you're a mass murderer or anything else, come on in. And we truly enjoyed his company. We had just the best laugh. And then Robert, over the years, was sending us records, Nightingales records, and keeping up sort of an exchange. But whenever he'd come to the show, I don't think he remembers this happening, but I remember it clearly because it involved my ego, bruising my ego. So he comes up to me after these shows, and he would always say, "Catherine is so amazing. The woman I sing with in Freakwater, she's so amazing. What's it like being able to sing with her?" And it was always just like talking to me about what a great song it was that Catherine wrote, or how great of a singer she was. And I was always like, yeah, she's fantastic. She is really great. Gee, thanks. She is great. So when I got the text that said, "Hi, this is Robert. Would you like to make a record with me?" I truly, I sent him back a message and said, "I think you mean the other one. It's not me. It's not me." So he said, "No, I mean you." And he said it wouldn't work with Catherine because it would be like Johnny Cash and Lee Hazelwood making a record together or something, which I thought was sort of, I didn't know how to take that either. Like, I'd like to be either one of those. I don't know. So when we started trying to figure out how to approach it, we really didn't have any idea. It was just like, I think the main goal was just have fun. It's just about having fun. This record isn't going to change, our existence in any way. It'll just be a nice thing to have, and the end product just has to reveal that we had a lot of fun, I think. So I was sending him things, like I sent him Meatloaf tune, like Dashboard Lights, and I think he was totally like, what have I got myself into? Like, I don't think he understood. Then I sent him, I can't remember, I sent him a Led Zeppelin song, and he's like, no. Like, I was just sending him these crazy things that I thought might be amusing to do in this way, because I wasn't really sure if the right way to go about it was to have this kind of vibe, like 60s vibe of a record. I wasn't sure if that's what it should be or not. I thought maybe it should be wackier than that, or just more experimental than that. And then I was starting to listen at tunes, and I heard a Dion tune that I loved. Now on our record, which I can't think of the name.
Wake Up Baby.
Wake Up Baby, thank you. Wake Up Baby. And then I love that. And it was decided that we would each sort of I think Robert had a couple songs that he really wanted me to, one to sing on for myself and one to sing with him. And then he wanted a couple Freakwater songs. And so it took a long time to sort of figure out what those would be. And one ended up being from my solo record, and one ended up being from an unreleased track from our last Freakwater record. And then, we asked friends, Jim Elkington, who I played with and plays with in 11th Dream Day and Horses Ha when we put those records out. And he put together a song that was it Pushkin? I can't, Robert, why don't you jump in here?
Yeah, it was, there's a Pushkin novel called Eugene Onegin or something similar to that. And I recently read this book, and the whole novel is in rhyme. And I thought, I really like this, the meter of this rhyme, so of this the kind of poem, and I thought I'm going to steal that and write a song using that structure. But when I came to it, I couldn't get my head around the actual structure. There was a certain section of it that was just bamboozled me, and I'd sort of met Jim separately from Janet, and it was quite weird when they eventually, when they were doing Horses Ha and played with us in Chicago, that this woman from Freakwater and this guy who had met at South by Southwest and got on with, that they knew each other and working together. But it was, anyway, that's by the by. But I knew what a great songwriter Jim was. So I sent him a section of this Pushkin novel just so he could see the structure of the rhymes, and said, I'm fucked if I can actually get, if I can get this together. Can you do it for me? And lo and behold, he wrote a fantastic song, which is Heavy Reckonings, which is the based around that rhythm. And he'd also, Janet had written a tune, if I understand this correctly, The True Lover's Lot and The Lie. She'd written the music for that, and Jim wrote a lyric for that also. And then at the very
it out a little bit too. He wrote a little bit of the music. I had like the gist of it, and I said I need a chorus, and we worked on it together. Yeah.
But I had been a massive fan of his band, the Zincs, so it was for me it was just really weird that I'd sort of fallen in love with Freakwater, and I was mad about the Zincs, and without knowing that Janet and Jim even knew each other. And so to actually get songs from Jim Elkington and to have Janet singing some of my songs and us working together, it was just thrilling for me, really. And as Janet said, we didn't really have a massive plan about it. I was sat in a bar in Cyprus one night trying to write lyrics for a Nightingales album, and I got I was at a loose end, and so I just started sort of doodling in my notebook and writing all kinds of nonsense, really. And then it just hit me that, like, I should make a record with Janet Bean. And I got the courage of a couple of beers inside me, so I sent a text message suggesting it. And I've still got the text from Janet sort of going, "Are you sure you don't mean Catherine?"
That's amazing.
And when I said no, she said, "Yeah, I'd like to do it." So it was just fab. And then back on the songs thing, yeah, I think Janet explained it pretty neatly. And then towards the end, just before we were about to get on the plane and go to Valencia to record together, John Langford wrote a song sort of saying, I'd like to contribute to the record. What do you think of this one? And and it was a bit of a classic, so we did that one as well.
John Langford, the patron saint of alt country here in Chicago. He's actually the patron saint of Chicago at this point.
I think so. I think so. And I think about it as like Langford and Elkington and now Lloyd. I have like I need like a birding chart where I can just mark off the types of countries of the UK where I've met with singers.
It's amazing.
I can only work with singers from the UK, which I hadn't really thought of until now. It's kind of funny. Male singers from the UK, that species of singer.
Janet, you can't tantalize us with the thought of the two of you doing Paradise by the Dashboard Light.
Wouldn't it have been great? It would have been really
great. It would have been amazing.
I still hold that out as a possibility. We did, we recorded Maurice Chevalier's song in the studio. I remember it well. I remember it well. La, 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 la. And that, I think that will take over the world at some point. So I really think that we should then tackle Paradise by the Dashboard Lights. I think we should.
Oh yeah, get the baseball play-by-play, like go full bore Meatloaf, exactly. 8 minutes, epic, absolutely. Let's go ahead.
I think Janet was at one stage. I mean, she just said, she'd suggested the Meatloaf thing and the Led Zeppelin thing, and maybe I was thinking, what have I got myself into? But I think she also kind of thought, what have I got myself into? Because it was absolutely genuine. I'd never heard the Meatloaf song before, and I'd never heard a Led Zeppelin album. And I think Janet thought, like, who is this guy who's never heard Led Zeppelin? And, is he some sort of lame brain that's just way behind the times?
That may be the most shocking thing to come out of this interview, in fact.
I swear, I am surprised by the people I know from my generation, from the UK that haven't listened to any Led Zeppelin. I don't know what it is. It's freakish to me. I don't know. It's a loss, I think, but it's okay. You survive just the same. You're thriving despite the fact that you've never heard it.
I mean, here in the Midwest, we grew up on a diet of that stuff.
Oh, yeah. And now my son just plays it all the time. So it's the fabric of our lives.
Indeed.
Well, the thing is, it's not the fabric of mine.
I know. Well, clearly, I know. I find that so interesting.
Let's talk about the only original composition for this between the two of you that you created, Black Cat, Dark Horse. There's so much to love about this, and really the so much to love starts with the video that you did. It speaks to, Janet mentioned the kind of 60s vibe of this record. I mean, that sells the 60s vibe hook, line, and sinker. I'm probably mixing metaphors, but just that Ed Sullivan on stage, Janet's got the tambourine, you've got your backs to each other. I love the concept. Did that come from you or from someone else?
Do you want to take it, Robert?
It was actually Michael, the director. To cut a very long story short, a year or two back, this director, Michael Cumming, and a stand-up comedian called Stuart Lee, who's quite a big noise in the UK, they made a documentary about me and my band, the Nightingales. And Stuart was a massive fan of 11th Dream Day. So when he heard that I was making a record with Janet, he was really excited about it. So I gave him a sort of sneak preview of it, and he absolutely loved it. And so I got an email from Michael Cumming, the director of the movie, and he was saying, "Oh, Stuart just keeps raving about this record you made with Janet. Can I hear it?" So I sent him a copy of it, and he also fell in love with it. And he was going, I want to make a video for it. And I said, well, that's all well and good, but Janet lives in the States and we've got no money. And he was sort of, well, I'll do it for no money, if there's some way we can work it out. And Janet was keen to do it, or to actually come over to the UK. which was the main stumbling block.
Mm-hmm.
And Michael came up with this idea. He was going, we won't have a lot of time, and we've only got so many favors I can pull in. So let's keep it simple. What do you think about this? Bum, 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 bum. Basically a performance video, as though you were on the TV back in the day. And we just thought it sounded pretty good. And he's got someone within his, I think it's his wife, but it's someone within his family, had some kind of link to the person who owns all the Ed Sullivan footage. And so he was able to rustle that up, which
Amazing.
is incredible, really. I mean, you would pay a lot of money, I would imagine, even if you were allowed to use it. But anyway, he got it, and we went in for a day, and as you say, it looks pretty good.
It looks authentic. I mean, it looks like it just was unearthed after decades of being in a vault somewhere, which was the desired effect.
It was a lot of fun to make as well. And I didn't know, I knew the documentary about Robert, which is great, but I didn't know Mike coming. And then I thought, well, I better Google this fella to see like what his story is if we're going to just agree to this. And I was like, oh my God, he's the director writer for Toast of London, and he's Word and Brass Eye. I was like, holy hell, yes. I mean, that was like so amazing, such a I don't know, such a lucky thing to have happen. And he was just incredibly lovely. The whole crew that I think pretty much did it for nothing on a Saturday were awesome. And it was really a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. And that trip, we played our only show to date, perhaps our only show ever. I don't know, but Lindy Morrison from the Go-Betweens happened to be in London at the time. And so she kindly agreed to be the drummer. And so we had this great lineup of the band, except for Pablo, the drummer on the record. Spencer, we had the second guitar player, but Lindy Morrison played on the shows. And that was like a super big treat because, she's rock royalty. I was walking by her in the Waterstone bookstore and seeing the book about her on the shelves. Like, wow, I'm just playing with her yesterday. There's that book about her, my rock and roll friend, that Tracy Thorn wrote, which is a great book. So yeah, it's a really fantastic experience, and it was a real treat to be in London for like 16, 17 days, just wandering about too. So it was great.
See, that's what I was kind of wondering. Is this project basically going to be like Brigadoon as far as live performance goes? We get one once every 100 years, then it disappears.
Well, if that is the schedule, it will only be once ever. I don't know. It really, maybe not. I don't know. It's a challenge. It's just a financial challenge. It would be great if we could bring the band over here and play some shows, but I don't, that would cost so much money. And I'm happy to go back and do some shows if there's a call for it. I would prefer a little more rehearsal time because I flew there. We had the 11th Dream Day 40th anniversary show at the Metro on a Sunday. I flew the next day. That night I arrived, we rehearsed, and then we played the show the next day. So we never worked together or anything, as sort of a full band. It would be good to get a little more rehearsal in before a show, but I would love to play another show. Yeah.
The truth is, James, there was never any intention there was certainly no plan to do any shows. And it wasn't until Michael Cumming offered to do the video and Janet made herself available to come to the UK. And then I thought, well, if Janet's in the UK, we should take the opportunity and try and arrange a gig. And that's the only reason it came about, really. We hadn't talked about doing any gigs, but it went down pretty well, and everyone, despite, I mean, Janet's perfectly correct about the lack of rehearsals, but despite that, it was a fun thing to do. So I'd like to think that wasn't the last gig, but logistically, when the next gig will be is like, who knows, you know. It'd be very nice to do one in Chicago, but the idea of doing it with what is now the Lloyd Bean Band, I don't think that would ever make economic sense.
Right.
So we'd have to rethink it a bit.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Going back just for a second to Black Cat Dark Horse as the original Lloyd Bean composition on this, as you worked on that collaboratively across the pond or however you pieced together the song, did you feel that creative spark like, oh shit, it's cool that we're doing all these other songs, but we should be writing more of our own collaborative stuff in the future?
I think we always, or I certainly intended when we agreed to make a record together, I thought there would be more collaborative material than one song. But because of the pandemic, I think we both, which is one of the reasons why it got knocked back for a few years, but also I think we both, to be honest, I think we both got pretty lazy about it and just thought, oh yeah, we're going to do it at some time, and neither of us put in the kind of effort that we probably should have done. And so even this one which is the Lloyd Bean collaboration with the guitar player Pete Birchmore, but even that that was a Pete Birchmore had written an instrumental, and it wasn't until we were in Spain that I wrote a lyric and Janet invented some melodies for it. So even that was like a last minute thing. It wasn't something we'd worked on over the 2 years we had to put the album together.
It was the day before we had the day before we had to record the song. And I think all my advice was I hummed out a melody and I was like, it has to be like 14 syllables here, like 7 syllables here, and it goes back and forth. And there was a melody, and so that was so. And Pete had written a great song also. So yeah, a musical collaboration would have been great. But you know, the guys in the band. Pete's such a good songwriter, and everybody, you know, I thought the songs that we had available to us, like the Eggs and Bacon song, I love. It sounds like some sort of strange Nielsen song to me, or something like
yes,
Bacharach meets Nielsen or something. I don't know. And you know, that was like, I was like, I'm not going to top this. So it's fine. I mean, I think that's the nature of some of those collaborative efforts of that era that we're sort of referencing. They did a lot of covers, a lot of songs. We're doing a Carole King song, the Dion song. We recorded a Nielsen song also, so we have an outtake of that as well. But you know, I sort of like that doing it sort of the old-fashioned way, where you're doing covers and the idea of doing each of our songs and interpreting them, you know, with you know, in your own way a little bit, I thought was great. Because I think the version of One Shot, which Robert does, a song of mine from my solo record, is so superior to my version. It's just so beautiful. And also Arc of a Smile, which he does, which is an outtake from a Freakwater's last record. He does such a stunning version of, you know, there's this sort of the gravitas, Leonard Cohen gravitas about it that I just love. I really love. And the band did just played beautifully.
Well, Janet's sort of taken the words out of my mouth, really, because I was going to say that some of the songs, whilst they weren't brand new songs, they were original and collaborative in a sense, you know. And I'm not just brown nosing to Janet because she's just said something nice about me. But like her version of Sweet Georgia Black, she just took that song and did it better than I'd done it and made it her own song, you know. And so I consider those collaborative, really, even though they were existing numbers.
Yeah.
I've always been a sucker for lyrics, and Janet mentioned eggs and bacon, which has one of my favorite lines. I'll clean the scum from around your bath, go arse over elbow just to make you laugh. I mean, lyrics don't get better than that.
It is pretty fun to sing.
Cheers. Glad to be of service.
This is sort of, speaking of that, this is a thing that I've had to deal with a couple times singing with people from the UK. Is that, is it arse or is it ass, or how do I, we're always trying to figure out how to work out the way we say things slightly differently from each other. And I think you changed it to ass when we were singing it, didn't you? I thought you changed it to ass. And the lyrics may say arse, but I think
I think it's arse. I wouldn't bet on it either way.
Yeah, and there's still some words in Black country. There's still some words that I don't know what the hell they mean. I mean, I don't know what the rooking is. I looked it up and I can't really find a definitive definition that would apply to the song. So it's just something else. So it's sort of interesting to sing with someone that has a very different collection of words.
But something that I found really delightful, and would never have said anything about it really, until Stuart Lee brought it up. But some of the very English phrases and English words, hearing Janet sing them is just wonderful. To have this sort of Yankee voice saying these words is like, it gives me a great deal of joy anyway.
see, Janet, you need to write a song that's very Chicago focused, like using words like jagoff, things that Robert can.
I don't even use those words so much. Really. I was brought up in the South, and so we don't do that. We don't speak like that.
Fair. Janet, you said something at the very beginning of our conversation today. You did this for fun.
Yeah.
I mean, you both have plenty of years and songs logged in music. It is refreshing to see creatives come together and just do things for the fuck of it. We're going to have fun. We're going to make music. We're going to collaborate. I've got to think that kind of fired you up.
Also, the fact that when I agreed to it, I said, here are the rules, that we do it in the winter and we do it someplace warm. So that added to the fun.
For sure.
Going to Spain. It's to work with someone that you've never worked before. I'm riddled with anxiety. I've always approached shows in the future with the sort of notion, oh, maybe I'll be hit by a bus before then, it's just a panic kind of thing. There is never a point where I say, oh, I'm ready. It's just always like, oh, I'm going to fuck up. It's going to be terrible. And then it works out. But still, the next time it just starts all over again. It's not like, oh, it wasn't so bad. I'm a trained professional. I shouldn't be so worried. It's still always the same. And so the idea, so clearly I crave that, I crave a bit of that. And so the idea of working with someone you've never worked with before, just being thrown into this thing that is working with other musicians you've never worked with before, in a place you've never worked before. And it's super thrilling, I guess it's like why people skydive or anything else. Like, that's the thrill of it. It's just like throwing yourself into something that can result in disaster, but more often than not, it's pretty glorious. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I echo that. I get very nervous, and I know that both of us are in our other projects, our day jobs or whatever, we would be quite meticulous. Rehearsals would be involved. Whereas when Janet arrived in Valencia, well, it wasn't just Janet, actually. There was only me that knew all the people. Like Janet had never met Pete, the guitarist, before, or Mark, the bass player. Mark, the bass player, had never met Pete, the guitarist, before. I was the only person who had actually met all the individual people, and even then we had a sort of Spanish drummer that no one met at all, who happened to work out a treat, but that was just, we were flying by the seat of our pants when it was, when he turned up. But yeah, I think that the mixture of the nerves that I didn't actually realize until she just said it. I didn't realize that Janet was as panicked as I was. But certainly the lack of rehearsals and the limited amount of time with a bunch of strangers, in terms of they weren't strangers for me, but everyone else was dealing with a bunch of strangers, and with Spanish-speaking sort of studio engineer, etc., etc. It was. I mean, it's not the hardest thing. It really, it's something that sticks in my craw when artists and musicians bleat about how difficult things are, But it was in our world, it was quite a risky thing. We didn't really know whether it was going to work or not, really.
But the band itself, Pablo, I didn't know anything about. He turned out to be fabulous. But Mark Bedford is bass player in Madness. Like, so you sort of know that you're going to get quality. I wasn't sort of worried about the players, and it was a real treat to play with everyone in the room. They were just so good, and we really were able to just stand in there and run through these songs that we had that I had been listening to in my headphones on the plane over and over, and then have them come together so quickly. So it was there were long days because we had a limited amount of time, but yeah, I wouldn't be doing it for 40 years for absolutely pennies if it didn't offer something that was fun and satisfying. I'm not that much of a glutton for punishment, so it's good, all good.
Well, hopefully people can throw a couple more pennies your way with this album.
I love that. Please.
Well,
just because someone though is, say, good on the bass guitar or whatever, it doesn't mean that you're not going to think they're a dick.
That's true. But they were not. No one was a dick. No one.
So it was like a sort of, I was absolutely confident with Pete and Mark that their musicianship was going to be, they were going to get what we were trying to do, and that they would be up to the task. But you never know. Yeah, I didn't know if you'd like them, for example, and want to spend.
There was nothing not to like. I mean, Pete's like a character from a TV show. I love him. He's just like this. I had a hard time understanding him sometimes. By the end of the night, with his, is it North? What is it? What is his accent called?
It's a Midlands accent, a Birmingham accent.
A Birmingham accent, yeah. Well, sometimes when Robert calls me late into the night, I think probably after he's had a drink or two, I can hardly understand a word he says too. So.
At the very beginning of our conversation, Janet, you said this record isn't going to change anyone's existence. Maybe not, but it sure is a lot of fun. I love the vibe. I love what you've both done here.
Thank you.
Cheers.
It
I
changed
mean,
my winter. My winter was much better. I had a great time. It changed my existence. It really did. I hope people do enjoy it, because it was a project of fun and love. So.
it really was a labor of love, and it was a lot of fun. But I think we both knew that we weren't going to do anything that was groundbreaking. You know,
It doesn't have to be. You had fun doing it. It shows.
Soil. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's evident.
I think it sounds great anyway. I'm very proud that we made the record, and I think it's a good one.
And I love the fact that, yes, it was recorded in the 21st century, but if you told a stranger off the street, yeah, this is something that came out in 1965. Oh, the production sounds better than I'd expect, but okay, yeah, I believe you. I mean, it does have that kind of timeless quality, which is, I mean, you did it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks.
And a friend of mine who listened to it, and they were going, "Oh, don't know who this Janet Bean is, but it sounds great, and the two of you sound great together." Blah 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 blah. But how did you get Dwayne Henley on the record?
That's amazing. That's
anyway,
amazing.
James. I'm not being funny here. If we're going to talk for a bit longer, I'm going to go and get another drink.
No, you know what? Get another drink. We're good. The album is Lloyd Bean. I love what you did. You deserve another drink. You earned it.
Okay.
I think he's signing off.
We're signing off. Yes.
Right.
We're all good. Thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate you.
All right. No, well, thanks for having us.